We're looking at Mod 26, which is the Federal Reserve System and the history of the Fed. So when you're looking at this one, first of all, it gives you like an overview, which you probably learned a bunch about when you did like AP US history class. So mostly calm with moments of sheer panic. Creation of a Federal Reserve System is going to happen because we don't want things like bank runs. So when you think about this crisis in the American banking system in the 20th century, or right around that turn of the 20th century, these things over here are what we're talking about. We're talking about speculation and some kind of problems going on in the banking industry. J.P. Morgan coming in and saving the day. Okay, those are all like history things that you might get. Nothing on the AP test about any of those things really. As we set up this banking system, though, we do realize we need a centralized control of like the bank. So we start doing this in the Federal Reserve System. So the Federal Reserve System is like the central bank of the United States. And what's going to happen in our Federal Reserve System is it has two parts here. One is like the Board of Governors, which controls this banking system, but also there's 12 regional banks that are part of the Federal Reserve System. So the structure of the Fed is the Board of Governors. It oversees the entire banking system like in whole. It's in Washington, D.C. It has 7 members appointed by the president to have to be approved by the Senate. The members are appointed for these 14-year terms. The chairman is appointed more frequently, like every 4 years or so, but it's traditional for them to be appointed for a longer period of time. The 12 regional banks are basically each serve a certain region. Okay, so each regional bank is run by the Board of Governors. The Federal Reserve in New York, though, does play a special role. Like that might be something that specific on a test you might get. It carries out the open market operations, which is going to be something we talk about in a module like 2 modules from now about monetary policy and how that's going to be used to be able to take money in and out of the system. This decisions about monetary policy are made by the Fed, but then instituted by the Bank of New York. When you look at where the Fed is closest to us, Minneapolis and Chicago are Federal Reserves that are close to us in terms of banks. There's one in St. Louis too, I guess. So like those 3 might be the ones, obviously Chicago closer than St. Louis, but those are the 3 that we have that are kind of near our area. What is the effectiveness of the Federal Reserve? Well, at the time, there's potential for bank runs would still exist, and so they did put some things in to kind of put checks in there so that not everybody could just go get their money out, and what you could do to kind of prevent those things from happening in the future. When you look at some of these other ones in here, we've had some problems, I guess, but nothing major, like nothing since like the Great Depression time period. What happens? Well, we have oversight. We did have some scandals, like the savings and loan kind of scandal thing that happened. But when you think about really runs on banks and that kind of stuff, we're not too worried about our money in today's economy. Now, do we have a banking crisis in 2008, 2009, like in that time period? Yes, we did. And it was kind of scary. We're going to watch a reason for that in terms of like the housing market and what was going on. We'll watch a movie on that. And it is kind of cool just to see like how, yes, we recognize there was a problem. Yes, the problem was happening. It was bad, but we also sort of saved it. And so it's kind of nice to say, oh, it works. Like you can use monetary fiscal policy kind of things to be able to fix an economy when even the worst of things is happening. So in 2008 here, we have a Bear Stearns versus Lehman Brothers thing we'll watch. And there are some things that you'll have to know about that, such as what is moral hazard, what is systemic risk. And at the time, moral hazard was simply this idea here that like it's a situation which one party to an agreement engages in risky behavior or fails to act in the good faith because it knows the other party pays the burden or bears the burden of the thing. So when there's no regulation, right, and you know that you're not the one who's going to be left holding the bag at the end, you might be a little more risky, right? And then this idea of systemic risk comes about. And in finance, it's if something collapses, then how does that affect something else, which affects something else, which affects something else? When you think about it in terms of maybe the human body, right? Like when some organ fails, it's going to cause this, and it turns out like maybe you didn't die from what you thought you died of. You died from some other reason, but it was caused because you had this other failure that occurred. So it's interesting to see systemic risk and moral hazard when we apply them to the housing market and what happened in like 2008, 2009, and that whole recession that was going on. So this section, I would say there's really nothing in here that is probably testable AP-wise, but just so you kind of understand, we have a banking system. This is the Fed. It's made up of these different groups of banks. It's controlled by this board of governors. I think that's probably what you need to know. If there's a question on the AP test, it would probably be something like, how many banks are there? Or maybe like, what is the board of governors or something like that? And that's probably all you really need. All right, till next time.